up there. Now, if you believe in Gothic mythology, the gargoyles are there to protect the building from evil. But if you don't buy that, then their other function is when it rains, it actually diverts the water to the corners, so it'll filter down here to the river. Now, just above the arch windows, all the way around the building, there are faces. Now, they, again, are called grotesque faces, and in Gothic mythology, their job is to scare away evil from the sides of the building. Personally, I think those faces still work. This one here on the end, every time I drive by her, I get nervous. Looks an awful lot like my mother-in-law. And you thought I was kidding when I said my jokes were bad. Now, as I said earlier, many of our buildings down here, they do have a history and a heritage. Now, another neat building that has got a history and heritage is coming up on the right side of the boat. This avocado green color building. This was our main public library for decades. Now it's the International Center. It actually has trade offices in there for Canada, Mexico, and the United States. At street level, another nice restaurant for us. And the bottom. Now the whole left side as we come around this curve is called La Levita. Means a little village. Around 1700. This is right where the Spanish soldiers were housed. Now their main function was to protect our 5 missions. The Alamo is the first of those 5, and they were being protected from the French, who were coming over from the east. Now, we're coming into the Ed Artisan Theater. Now, this is the only theater in America that has the river going right through it. Now, on the left-hand side, we can get as many as 800 people up there. And if the stage on the right looks a little bit familiar to you, well, you may have seen this in the movie Miss Congeniality. That is right where Sandra Bullock was at during the filming of that movie. Now, the 5 bells on the back of the stage, they do represent our 5 missions. And the center bell does have a name on it. It is Robert Hugman. He is considered to be the father of the Riverwalk, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him down the river. Now, on that stage, I've seen traditional Mexican dancing. I have heard some of the best jazz music one could ever hear. In fact, I've even seen the tryouts for the Hooter Girls on that stage. But my favorite on that stage are the weddings. And it's a selfish reason why it's my favorite, and I admit it. They always put the cameras over here on the left side where everybody sits. Well, guess whose photo is in 25 wedding albums? And I've never met the bride or the groom, but I am part of that wedding party. Now, the last wedding that was on in there was a little bit unusual. The bride was wearing black. The groom was wearing black. All 8 of her bridesmaids were wearing black, and the one best man was wearing black. She was wearing white, but she had black fingernail polish on, black lipstick, and black eyeliner. It was a goth wedding.
Brilliant.
I was wearing my white shirt that day, so when I drove through, I'm sure I stood out. Now, if that was any of your relatives, if you can bring me a copy of the wedding photo, I'd love to see how I looked in that. By the way, all the flowers on the stage, they were also black. It was an interesting wedding, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the rest take them about 8 miles south of the city and put it back in. But most of them can. Those that can't, again, are our winter Texan birds. They do have that smorgasbord. And we're leaving the man-made, coming back out to the actual, again, San Antonio River.
Well, this will go here.
Now, on the right side of the boat, just past the bridge, another place to pick up our tour boats. And on the left-hand side, well, this is the Hilton Paseo del Rio. Now, this hotel's got a neat story behind it. In 1967, all 500 rooms of this hotel, they were sold out for the 68-year-old spare. Just one little problem. They hadn't built it yet. Had not even broken ground. Hilton himself came down here in a bit of a panic. What he decided to do was go to what's called modular design. Now, if you notice from the 4th floor up, every other floor is alternated or staggered. Kind of like a small child puts Lego blocks together. That was the strike how this was built. Every one of these units were made ready off-site, brought in on a flatbed truck, lifted up, then concreted in place. Now, the weird part about this story, when I say made ready off-site, well, not only was the furniture in every room, the beds were made in every room before they lifted them up. The little Gideon Bibles, they were in the nightstands next to the already made beds. The pictures, the shower curtains, the towels, and yes, even the toilet paper were hung in every room before they lifted them up and concreted them in place. That entire building took 202 working days from start to finish. It was the fastest built hotel in the world. Yep, and believe it or not, it came in under budget and was completed. Floodgate and takes the left. It goes behind me, all the way down to the Guadalupe River. About 130 miles, another 10 miles. Now our river ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. The river starts 5 miles up in front of us. Comes up out of the ground from a giant underground lake. It's called Edwards Aquifer. Now that is the same place where all of us here in San Antonio get our water. So if you're from out of town and you watch our local news channels and they talk about the water level at Edwards, that is what they're talking about. Now all of this was drawn up on paper by a gentleman named Robert Hudman. I mentioned him earlier. He drew up plans for all 9 of our floodgates, and when the project was finally completed in 1941, nothing inside the horseshoe is flooded, ladies and gentlemen. Whether we have a lot of rain, or in the case of last summer where we had very little rain, the water level pretty much stays right as you see it right now. Now just past this bridge on the right side, this is Drury Plaza. They were kind enough a couple years ago to donate 850 feet for the sidewalk. Since then, you can now walk the entire inside portion of our horseshoe at river level. And on the left-hand side, if you go up the stairs, well, that's Main Plaza. Used to be the exact center of our city. Now, San Fernando Cathedral's up there. That is one of the oldest cathedrals in our nation. And you'll find some nice restaurants. During the work week, there is live music up there. Now, that is when they turn on all the holiday lighting down here. Every tree has holiday lighting. Every boat, every building, even a few of the riverboat captains. It is, if you think it's beautiful now, just multiply this beauty times 10. Now that is always the biggest parade of the year. This year was last year was no exception. On November 27th, when we had the holiday parade, we had more boats and floats on the water than we ever had. But we also had the biggest crowd show up. We had over 400,000 people down here to watch the parade. Now remember, wherever I'm taking you today is part of that parade route. Wherever you see a flat surface, there was a body on it. It literally was that crowded down here. It was unbelievable. So yes, they didn't have to go back to school for an entire 10 school days because both high schools were totaled out. The entire first floor flooded out. So yes, it was rather amazing down here. Yes, ma'am. To say it bluntly, our vendors are incredibly comfortable, at least in my opinion. One of my neighbors could not figure out why I put sandbags in the back of my pickup. I said, for traction. Oh, that's a great idea. They never thought of it, believe it or not. Whenever we do on occasion get ice here, and with all the hills that you see we have in our city will shut down for that also. But that's usually only a day or so. Believe it or not, our city only has 2 snow plows. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, it's not something we need. What was it, Steve RCM? So yes, it is rather interesting down here. Now, if any of you guys were here at the end of November when we had our holiday party boat night, we have 2 marinas. That is one of them that we actively use. Now, I did mention our 9 floodgates. We're going to go through floodgate number 4. This one actually comes up and closes just like a drawbridge. The green light here tells me the floodgate is all the way open. When we drain our river, that is when we close it, ladies and gentlemen. But today is not that day. Now, because I'm pulling out into 2-way traffic, I do honk the horn. I want to make darn sure I don't lose the front of the boat. But I also do that to make sure that most of you are still awake. As I come around this curve, the river actually